me, I don't give a damn if Kamala Harris is black, if she's white, if she's Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, Indian, it doesn't matter. If she was a bad vice president, which she is, she's not going to make a good president. All she's done these last 4 years is tinker around the country with one talking point, only speaking in rhyme, and she has aided in the destruction of this country right alongside Joe Biden. If you're going to vote for that, knowing everything that you've seen these last 4 years, then you're an idiot.
Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. I do appreciate you clicking on the video to watch it, and since you are here, it would just take one more second, one more click to help me to grow this channel and hit that subscribe button now. And to those of you that are returning, you know that I truly appreciate your continued support, hitting that like button, engaging in the conversations, and I would love it if you would just make sure that you are subscribed as well. So I think it is a fair statement to say that the election season is just going to be completely unhinged. I mean, we thought 2020 was wild, which it absolutely was. I think 2024 is going to be that much more off the rails, just in a different way. And maybe it just feels like the last 3.5 years have really just been focused on the two candidates we were likely going to see face off again in 2024, which was supposed to be Joe Biden and Donald Trump. But anybody with two working eyeballs, and even one working eyeball, or even just a pulse and maybe a couple of brain cells, could tell that Joe Biden was not going to make it to the 2024 election, and that he was really being propped up by his handlers. There was likely a cocktail of medication going on behind the scenes just to keep him awake long enough to read a teleprompter, even though he failed miserably at that most of the time. And I think a lot of us were shocked that he even made it this far. At least those of us who were not listening to the mainstream media, who kept insisting until about 5 minutes ago that he was fine, that he was on top of his game, that he was fit, that he could beat President Trump, and that all was well and good. Until it wasn't, and then they finally had to admit that they could not keep this man going any longer. So now they have this monumental task of trying to boost this candidate, this woman, that they know that they only put in the VP spot because she's a woman and because her skin color is not white. Now they have this person that they are trying to boost and trying to convince people that they like Kamala far more than they realize, that, you know, that she has far more to offer than they realize, that she's not just her gender, that she's not just her skin color, and that she hasn't failed miserably every step of the way for the last 3.5 years that she has been in this position that she didn't earn, but that she actually is like, you really do like Kamala. You really do need her in this position. You do know that she's going to do a great job, despite everything that your mind, your soul, and your brain and your instincts have told you over the last 3 years about this person. Never mind that our instincts about people are generally pretty spot on. They're telling you to completely ignore that and that you are just wrong about every single way that you have perceived Kamala Harris since 2021. But if it wasn't bad enough for them to try to, like I said, get you to ignore your own instincts about Kamala Harris and the fact that her policy ideas are completely terrible and will absolutely destroy this country, and personality-wise, she can't even carry the support and the votes just by being a likable person, now they have to come up with all of these crazy, insane, bizarre tactics to maybe distract you from the fact that you don't like her and don't support her and don't like what she says or does, or just like her very existence as a person. And maybe that explains why all of the tactics that they are resorting to now are just completely unhinged. I mean, we've seen all of the Democrats repeat this phrase recently that JD Vance is weird. Weird, 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 weird. There's an entire montage of the media repeating this phrase that JD Vance is weird. And it's out there. If I could find it, I would post it right now, but you can find it. And you know that this is repeated messaging. This is something that they are trying to grill into your brain. Yet I feel like this is just another level of projection, because everything the Democrats are doing to try to get people to support Kamala Harris is, I don't even know if weird is the right word. Like, that's putting it nicely. It is just bizarre. And one of the things that they decided to do, I'm sorry, I have to laugh because it is so cringy, which is why I have Dylan Mulvaney with the White Dudes for Kamala on this screen, this is one of the online events that they held recently to try to appeal to more white men and bring them in to the fold of support for this candidate. Because we know that, unfortunately, and it just really makes me sad to say that there is a large female support that goes toward the Democrat Party, because for some reason so many women have been convinced to believe that all of their rights are completely tied up in the abortion issue, that the only thing that defines women's rights in this country is whether or not you can kill your unborn child. It doesn't matter if we have opportunities, it doesn't matter if we have promotions, it doesn't matter if we have scholarships or athletics or privacy or dorms or anything specifically dedicated to us, which are all things that we have lost over the last several years. Those are not actually our rights. Those are completely things that we can hand over to men, and it is just fine, and it is perfectly okay for our daughters to be raised in this type of society where they don't have a right to any of those things, despite the fact that men still do. The only thing that is truly a threat to being a woman in this country, despite the fact that the word woman doesn't even have any real definition anymore, is whether or not you can kill your unborn child. It really is just about what you are doing with your uterus, because to Democrats, that's all women are. It is defined by whether or not they can kill the life in their womb, in their uterus, or whether or not they can rent their uterus out to somebody else who wants to have a baby and can't, or can house a human being for even the most morally degenerate people in society. Like, that is all that women are defined as, or the only thing that differentiates women from men, according to Democrats. It really is that insane. But unfortunately, because their messaging tactics have been so effective, and because women are so easily manipulated by their emotions and will fall in line with anything that triggers that emotional response, there are a lot of women who are supporting Democrats. So now that they have locked up that vote, again, in manipulating women into believing that all of their rights are tied up in abortion, they now need to get more support of men, which is going to be a little more tricky, because men are not as emotionally driven. They are much more driven by logic, reason, rational, what is going on around them, and which is why they don't support Democrats for the most part, which is why so many men are leaning towards conservatism, and you have more women leaning towards the liberal side of things, because men go by what is happening right in front of their faces, and you can't distract them from that just by using emotional triggers or trying to make them cry. So one of the tactics that the Democrats are using is that they hosted this Zoom call called White Dudes for Kamala. And yes, it is about as cringy as it sounds. So this was a flyer that I saw on X regarding this online event. Whether or not this was the official flyer, I'm not sure, but this is what's going around on X, so I'm assuming this is what the invitation looked like. And yes, it's White Dudes for Harris. And I always find it particularly interesting when, of course, the GOP, Republicans, conservatives, anybody that does not vote for Democrats, even if you are a registered Democrat but have chosen not to support them, anybody that does not support them is a racist. We're the ones that are racist. Yet everything that they do is based on skin color, is based on some kind of identity factor, usually an immutable characteristic, usually so that they can separate us out into groups and then find some way to identify or relate to that group, and then make it seem like they own you, or make it seem like you owe them your support or your vote because you have a particular skin color, or because you have a particular gender identity, or whatever it is, or have some kind of victimhood status. So that's how they operate. They've got to separate people into groups, which is a very, very Marxist tactic, because they are all the Marxists. That's who is running the Democrat Party right now. So that's why they do this. That's why they do these things. So they have the White Dudes for Harris, and they've got to appeal to the white men. But of course, white women and white men across the board, because I actually saw a Zoom call with white liberal women kind of in this same vein, with the same theme the other day. And essentially the only thing that we are good for is learning how to talk minorities into voting for Harris. We're supposed to use our white privilege to influence wants the country to vote in this way. That is the only value that we have. So we're going to go through some of the people that were on this call, which just happen to be very elite, wealthy men who don't actually have to deal with the repercussions of voting for somebody who is an outright communist, who is all about wealth redistribution, who has said repeatedly that she is about equity, meaning it's not about starting in the same place, it's about ending up in the same place, which means taking away from people who have actually earned their success and giving it to people that have not. And I know that people think that this is just a fair and just system, but what they're really going for is an equal level of poverty. Nobody's going to succeed in that system. They are not looking to create an equal level of everybody living comfortably. This is all about creating an equal level of poverty, which is easier for them to control, especially when they get to control the resources, which is again another aspect of communism. Kamala Harris is a communist. Anyway, little bit of a tangent, but again, a lot of the people that were on this call were wealthy elite men that I'm sure were paid to attend this event, whose very jobs is to be paid to repeat lines and to repeat the things that they're told and to do as they're told. That's essentially who they are and what they live by. So there's the people that are offering opinion in this Zoom call are about as authentic as Kamala Harris herself, but this is the approach that they are going with to try to appeal to men in this country. But like I said, men are not as easily driven by emotion, and most are going to, rightfully so, look at this and just mock it and make fun of it, as you should. And before we get into the clips that I want to show you, this is just a screenshot of some of the men that were on this. We have got is it Mark Hamill, the guy that played Luke Skywalker in the original Star Wars series? And we've got, I think this is Lance Bass, or I could be completely wrong, but it looks like Lance Bass. And I believe he was part of NSYNC, but I could be getting my boy bands mixed up, and then several other people. But I'm sorry, this is, I mean, just looking at this screenshot is so incredibly cringy. Like, every single one of you needs to just forfeit your man card entirely. In fact, I think some of these people are encouraging men to forego their masculinity, to let it go, that telling men that their masculinity is just completely toxic and not doing the country any good. So they're actually encouraging men in this call just to not be men, to not be the protectors and providers of society. So right here, all of these men are hitting every single bullet point on every woman's ick list. This is every red flag imaginable. So ladies, if you are dating somebody that says that this was the coolest thing they ever saw, that is a huge red flag, and you probably should not be in a relationship with them, because you will always wear the pants in that relationship. You will always be the man, and you will be with somebody that you cannot respect. So the first person we're going to look at here is Jeff Bridges. I think most of us have heard of Jeff Bridges, and I think I've seen a lot of his movies. I've appreciated his work in a lot of ways, but for the most part, over the last several years, I have just avoided most Hollywood movies in general, because I am tired of hearing from people that have no idea what real life in America is like right now, particularly when we can't afford groceries, the cost of living is skyrocketing, wages are not meeting that, and not only that, we're importing millions of people to take our jobs, to take our resources, to take away from the things that should be going to our families, to our communities, to our cities, to make our lives better. But those things are all being dispersed amongst all of the people that they're trying to bring here, probably to vote for the Harris ticket and whoever she brings on as VP. But we've got Jeff Bridges here, who has a net worth of $100 million. So again, just another person that has no idea what the rest of us are dealing with. And honestly, I don't even think he really knows what's going on in this call. He just seems to have gotten an invitation, and maybe he's been a little bit lonely for a while and hasn't had a lot of like social interaction. So he just thought it would be a fun time to hang out with a bunch of guys, regardless of the reason. So I don't really think he understands what's going on, which is totally fine. It just happens when you get older. It's perfectly fine. Sometimes we're just not as sharp as ever. Maybe he and Joe Biden can go out and get some ice cream. Anyway, let's listen to just a little bit. It's just really cringy and amusing to watch at the same time.
I gotta laugh because I accepted the invitation. You know, I was brought to the party not so much as being white, and I certainly am, but because I'm a dude, you know. So a friend sent me this email today with your hat on there, and I said, "Oh, I gotta have one of those. I qualify, man. I'm white, I'm a dude, and I'm for Harris." So wonderful to be here, and I dug what you said, Maurice. That's really terrific. The fact that you're here, you're a black man here with us white guys. I had no idea that this whole thing that we're up to was based on what? Black women for Harris, right?
Yet again, we're supposed to be the ones that are racist. Yet how many times in just this 40 seconds of this clip has Jeff Bridges mentioned skin color, and that he's so surprised that we have black people interacting with white people for a common cause? If that doesn't describe the disconnect that liberals in general have to how the majority of people think on a logical and on a human basis, that we're not constantly walking around, in tune with whether or not we're interacting with people that look like us. I know that we're supposed to, according to Democrats, that's the only thing that we're supposed to think about because we're racist and they're not. But again, how many times has he mentioned skin color in this clip? And it's only a few seconds long. He hasn't talked about anything else, yet we're racist. Okay, make it make sense. And just a couple comments on the side of this. One girl says, Hollywood is an endless supply of disappointment. Have to agree with you. And then someone down here says, liberalism is a psychiatric disorder. Again, agree. So let's look at a couple more. Next, we're going to move on to Sean Astin. And I think most people know him as Samwise Gamgee from the Lord of the Rings. If I'm getting the name wrong, I had to think about it for a second what his character was in that movie. But I think most people know him as the sidekick to Frodo. That is probably the most well-known movie he has done. And the clip that I'm going to play here, okay, I'll play it first and then I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are.
Kamala Harris smiles. She laughs. She dances. She has joy. She's alive. And they try and ridicule her for that. And they try and undermine us for that. This is a serious person.
So what comes to mind when I'm listening to this is, I don't think it could be more obvious that he was handed specific talking points to touch on, because he knows someone has told this this guy that some of the most off-putting things about Kamala Harris is her dancing, is her laugh, is her fake smile, is her lack of authenticity. And it's interesting that he throws in there, she's alive. That is literally how low the bar for the Democrat Party is. I mean, many people have said that even if they had to wheel Joe Biden in on a gurney, while getting the defibrillator out just to get him across the finish line and make sure he still has a pulse, they still would have voted for him. So they weren't kidding in 2020 when they said any warm body besides Trump or whatever it was. So it's just funny that he said that. But it's they know that these are the things that people completely dislike, that actually turn people off about Kamala Harris. Because of course, we love people who smile, who laugh, who dance, who have true joy in that. But we know instinctually as human beings, we can recognize when someone is being so deeply fake. And again, it's just one of those things that people cannot let go of, that they cannot ignore or put aside. It's like one of the few, I think, personality traits that people just have a really hard time letting go of. There's a lot of things that we can excuse. There's a lot of things that we can kind of put up with, but people do not enjoy phony people. And that is the problem. It is not her smiling, laughing, and dancing as a human being. It's the fact that it is all performative. It is all just this desperate attempt to relate to people that people know is so insincere. So that is the problem. So of course, it is a level of gaslighting here to make it seem like people have that we have a problem with people who laugh and dance and have joy, which is not the case at all, because there's far more laughing, dancing, and joy in the Conservative Party than there is in the Democrat Party. By far. That's not even a question. If you don't see it, I don't know what to tell you. You're probably caught up very much so in your own anger. But it's just, I believe someone had to slip in there and say, this is what they're criticizing her for, so this is what you need to bring up, and make it sound like it is completely absurd that these are things that they don't like about Kamala Harris. So this is Lance Bass, and of course they have to bring in at least one token gay person that is white. He's only allowed in there because he meets this specific criteria, but they have to bring him in to touch on all of these other things that the Democrats are lying about, that Republicans are against. But we'll just see what he has to say just for a couple of seconds here.
As a diabetic, as a gay married man with children from IVF, co-chair of the Environmental Media Association, everything I am is opposite of what the Trump campaign stands for. And that is why I want to be heavily involved, this year.
We don't even need to go on because it's clearly how much Lance Bass actually does his own research when it comes to the environment, when it comes to diabetic medication and things like insulin, because I've seen countless people talk about how expensive their insulin has gotten in the last 3 years. I remember actually seeing a video of a mom, it was probably within the first month or two of Biden and Harris going into office, and she was just sobbing because this, I don't know if it was insulin, it was something else. I think it was probably insulin, but the cost had gone from, maybe $50, $60, I don't know what it is in insurance, to being several $100s for this life-saving medication. So of course that isn't going to impact somebody like Lance Bass, who has millions of dollars to burn, but it is obviously going to be something that affects other people. And then of course he has to bring in the IVF, because all of these people are peddling this lie that Republicans want to get rid of IVF. And of course it's largely based on the lies that they told about the situation that happened in Alabama a few months ago, when Democrats are spreading the lie that we were going to start criminally charging people that offered IVF to women, or we were putting that in jeopardy, which is something that never happened. But again, people in Hollywood do not do their own research. They are given the lines, they are told what to say, they are told what to believe, and they do not question anything. And I'm almost getting angry because it makes me so mad that these people feel like they have any right to tell us how to vote when their way of living is so completely disconnected from how the rest of us have to live. And they have to bring up all of these things like, as a diabetic, as a gay man, as somebody who used IVF, and whatever else that he says. He has to hit all of these victimhood points because he's trying to appeal to people that have those same things. So if someone hears he's a diabetic, oh, I'm a diabetic, so then I need to vote for Kamala Harris. Oh, I used IVF, he used IVF, so now I'm in that camp as well. Oh, I'm gay, he's gay, so now I'm in that camp as well. They have to point out all of these victimhood talking points to draw people in so that they can get as many people based on these labels to support the left. Anyway, that is all I'm going to put you through with that. There were a few more I wanted to touch on, but I feel like this video is already getting to be long enough. But you can find all of the clips online, and they are just as cringy as the ones that we just saw. Like I said, there's Mark Hamill, they've got Josh Gad, they've got, people that are fairly well known and of course worth far more than the average American is. So just, they have no real relevance to the things that we actually have to deal with, and clearly don't understand what it means for the rest of society, for us peasants, if we actually put a communist in office. But just to end things on a lighter note, the memes have not disappointed. So this one's is white dudes for Kamala. We got Kamala with a white man in a dress, which seems about appropriate. White dudes for Kamala. I believe that is Rachel Maddow. It is kind of a funny photo, but fun fact, I actually did meet Rachel Maddow about 10 years ago, I want to say, as a makeup artist and hairstylist. I did makeup for her while she was doing a promotion of, I think it was like newly legalized medical marijuana in Colorado or something along those lines. It was a while ago. It was a segment for NBC Universal. That's how much I watch mainstream media. But anyway, so yeah, I actually did meet her. It was a little bit crazy. And white dudes for Kamala in their bondage gear with probably, I think that's Senator Scott Wiener from California. Yeah, that guy's questionable, but in their bondage gear, there's probably some children behind them. So yeah, that's pretty much what white men in the Democrat Party all support, because none of y'all are standing up for protecting children from being sexualized. Anyway, I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below if you managed to stick through to the end, because I know that was cringy at the highest levels, but we just had to talk about it today. So let me know all of your thoughts. Please be sure to hit that like button. Make sure that you are subscribed, because YouTube in particular likes to unsubscribe people from my channel, which is super fun. But if you could make sure that you are subscribed, be sure to share this video with anyone that you think might get a kick out of it, and just to be aware of the bizarre tactics that are happening within the Democrat Party right now. And this will not be the last of videos on this topic, because they're just going off the rails completely. So we're going to have a lot of content in this particular arena. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one.